What happens when an attack dog meets a royal guard trained in canine psychology? This guard possessed a secret skill that would leave both the dog and its aggressive owner completely stunned. In a confrontation that lasted less than 3 minutes, Lance Corporal James Harrington faced down a snarling Rottweiler without breaking his stance. Can perfect stillness overcome raw aggression? The crowd held their breath as tension filled the air. No one expected what happened next as the dog prepared to lunge forward. Something extraordinary was about to unfold, a moment that would challenge everything onlookers thought they knew about the battle between discipline and instinct. If you're amazed by this jaw-dropping moment, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more incredible stories. What force could possibly stop 60 kilograms of trained muscle and aggression once unleashed? As Darren's challenge echoed through the courtyard and Ripper tensed to spring forward, the unspoken command that only a trained handler could convey through a mere gesture was about to communicate something that no human command could override. The moment suspended in crystal clarity. Tourists held their breath as Darren's fingers worked the clasp on Ripper's collar, his movements deliberately slow. With a final twist, he released the mechanism. The heavy chain leash fell to the cobblestones with a sound that echoed across the courtyard. "Attack!" The command shot through the air. Ripper's body transformed instantly into a weapon, muscles coiling and releasing with explosive force. The Rottweiler became a blur of dark fur and focused aggression as he charged toward the motionless guard. Several onlookers scattered in panic. A woman pulled her young son behind her. Phones rose into the air, their owners compelled to document what they believed would be a brutal assault. All eyes fixed on the collision between animal fury and human vulnerability. At 3 feet from impact, the impossible occurred. Ripper's powerful stride, that seamless machine of muscle and bone, suddenly faltered. His front paws scrabbled against the smooth cobblestones as if encountering an invisible barrier. The dog's headlong charge lost momentum, shifting from lethal purpose to hesitation. 2 feet from the guard, the transformation deepened. Ripper's ears, which had been flattened aggressively against his skull, twitched forward in a signal recognized by anyone fluent in canine body language. His snarling muzzle closed gradually. The aggressive posture dissolved before their eyes. Despite years of aggressive training designed to override natural instincts, something primal was happening between predators. Silence hung heavy and complete. Only distant calls of startled birds and confused murmurs punctuated the tableau. Phones captured a moment of bewilderment rather than violence. Parents who had shielded their children cautiously lowered their arms. Darren's face registered the change before his mind processed it. His confident sneer crumbled into confusion, then twisted into rage. The weapon he had unleashed, his extension of intimidation, was betraying him publicly. Most incomprehensibly, the guard hadn't moved a single muscle. Behind the guard's impassive exterior lay a sophisticated psychological technique developed through years of high-pressure situations. His training had cultivated an internal separation between stimulus and response, creating a mental space where he remained fully present while choosing his reaction rather than being hijacked by instinct. His mind maintained complete situational awareness without surrendering to the emotional current Darren tried to provoke. Ripper approached the final foot with a completely altered demeanor. The dog, who had launched forward with killing intent, now moved with cautious respect. Natural dominance hierarchies were asserting themselves beyond human commands or training. The cautious respect Ripper displayed wasn't random submission. It was recognition of something hidden beneath the ceremonial uniform. What invisible signals pass between a military K9 handler and an aggressive dog that can transform fury into discipline in mere seconds? As Lance Corporal Harrington's white-gloved hand moved with deliberate precision, everyone witnessing the scene fell silent. The air seemed to thicken with anticipation. "Stand," Harrington commanded, his voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying an unmistakable authority that resonated through the courtyard. The single word wasn't shouted, like Darren's aggressive attack had been. Instead, it came with the quiet confidence of someone who knew he would be obeyed without question. The transformation in Ripper was immediate. The once aggressive Rottweiler rose from his submissive posture, head lifting with newfound dignity. His ears now stood alert and attentive. Every muscle in his powerful body responded with an eagerness that seemed impossible given his behavior moments before. This was the willing response of an animal that had found its proper place. The Royal Guard, who had maintained perfect stillness for hours, now revealed an unexpected dimension of expertise. His movements carried the same disciplined precision as his previous stillness, each gesture economical and purposeful. Lance Corporal James Harrington, Royal Regiment of Fusiliers, the guard spoke, his voice carrying across the courtyard. 4 years with the military working dog unit in Afghanistan before my posting to ceremonial duty. The revelation made sense of the inexplicable scene. This wasn't merely a ceremonial guard. He was a specialist whose experience with military working dogs had given him fluency in a language Darren couldn't comprehend. Harrington's hands moved like a conductor's, small, precise patterns forming a sophisticated orchestration between handler and animal. Each subtle gesture produced an immediate response from Ripper, sitting, standing, turning, all executed with precision that spoke of training, channeling natural instincts rather than suppressing them. "Your dog has been mistreated," Harrington said, his assessment cutting through the tension. The statement wasn't accusatory but matter of fact, the observation of a professional who understood that proper training created purpose rather than fear. Where Darren had shouted commands and yanked chains, Harrington whispered and guided with fingertips. Where Darren instilled terror, Harrington offered leadership. The subtle signals weren't tricks to dominate, but a communication system that respected the animal's intelligence. Darren stood paralyzed, witnessing the complete betrayal of his weapon of intimidation. His face cycled through emotions, confusion, disbelief, and finally, the dawning recognition that he had fundamentally misunderstood the nature of control. The dog he had trained through fear now sat at perfect attention beside Harrington's boot, every line of the animal's body expressing the relief of finally finding genuine authority. The shift in power struck Darren like a physical blow as his loyal weapon of intimidation now sat obediently at the feet of his enemy. In the battle between fear-based control and genuine authority, nature itself seemed to have rendered its verdict. Darren's face twisted into a mask of confusion and rage, his entire identity as the neighborhood tough suddenly undermined in front of dozens of witnesses with raised phones. "What the hell did you do to my dog?" The question erupted from Darren, his voice cracking under the weight of humiliation. His knuckles whitened as he stepped toward Harrington. The guard's assessment was clinical, his eyes performing the rapid threat evaluation he'd conducted countless times in combat zones. Darren registered as little more than an inconvenience. "In Afghanistan," Harrington said, his voice carrying quiet confidence, "I faced insurgents in H Province, men who were willing to die for their beliefs. Your threats don't register in comparison." The crowd edged closer. The confrontation had transformed into a clash between two fundamentally different understandings of power and control. Like a dam finally giving way, Darren's composure shattered. With a strangled yell that revealed more desperation than strength, he lunged toward Harrington's uniform. The guard didn't flinch or reach for his weapon. A subtle hand signal was all it took. Ripper responded with military precision, intercepting his former master with remarkable restraint. The dog targeted only Darren's sleeve rather than vulnerable areas, demonstrating the tactical discipline that separated Harrington's leadership from Darren's crude intimidation tactics. Off balance, Darren stumbled backward on the ancient cobblestones. The crowd created distance, many still recording as the tables turned dramatically. "That's what happens when you mistake fear for respect," murmured a woman in the front row, capturing the collective satisfaction rippling through the onlookers. For perhaps the first time in his adult life, Darren experienced the same fear he had routinely inflicted on others. The realization was visible in his wide eyes and sudden pallor. Harrington's understanding of animal behavior had accomplished what years of brutality never could, establishing genuine trust with the dog. Darren's gaze darted between Harrington and Ripper, the latter still positioned protectively, awaiting further command. The distinction between intimidation and true leadership couldn't have been more stark. Palace security officers converged with professional efficiency. Seeing them approach, Darren abandoned any pretense of dignity, turning to flee through the palace gates, pursued by uniformed officers who would undoubtedly have questions about his attempt to use an attack dog against a royal guard. In the sudden calm that followed, Harrington seamlessly returned to his ceremonial stance, eyes forward, rifle positioned with perfect precision across his chest. Beside his polished boot, Ripper sat with equal discipline, a living embodiment of the authority that had always existed beneath the ceremonial exterior. And so, as the crowd dispersed and life around Buckingham Palace returned to its ordinary rhythm, something profound lingered in the air. This confrontation revealed a timeless truth. Authority isn't granted by uniform alone, but earned through action. Like a master chess player who reveals their skill only when challenged, Harrington's composed response answered the question we began with: what separates true authority from mere intimidation? In that pivotal moment when Ripper yielded to quiet confidence rather than aggressive threats, we witnessed what philosophers have understood for centuries. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. The journey from tense confrontation to peaceful resolution reminds us that real power, like the changing of the guard itself, follows its own disciplined rhythm, regardless of those who attempt to disrupt it.